Hi everybody, it's a new week, Monday of the 31st week in Ordinary Time. Our text is taken from Philippians chapter 2 verse 1 to 4. We began Philippians on Saturday. In case you didn't see our video on Saturday, I suggest you stop right now, go to Saturday, watch the introductory video that I've done to explain the background of the book of St. Paul to the Philippians and then come back. But in any case, for those of you who have joined me on Saturday, we are doing Philippians chapter 2 verse 1 to 4 and I've entitled today's teaching, Humility Creates Unity. So let's read the text. If then there is any encouragement in Christ, any consolation from love, any sharing in the Spirit, any compassion and sympathy, make my joy complete. Be of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility regard others as better than yourself. Let each of you look not to your own interests, but to the interests of others. The word of the Lord. Now, our text of today forms part of a larger text that spans chapter 2, verse 1 all the way to 11. Our text of today is just the first part of it, the first 4 verses. Now, the passage of chapter 2, verse 1 to 11 speaks of the humility of Christ. The letter to the Philippians, if you look at it very carefully, as I said on Saturday, has several purposes and as a consequence it has several messages. But one of them, and a very strong one, was this message of the humility of Christ that we are called to imitate. Now, Paul begins chapter 2 of the letter with the word if. If then there is any encouragement. Paul is not expressing a doubt when he begins chapter 2 verse 1 with the word if. On the contrary, it's a manner of speaking, a manner that takes the rhetorical statement to be not only a matter of fact, but a matter that would receive a resounding approval from all. So Paul is not saying that if you have any encouragement in Christ, and I'm not sure that you do, he's not saying that. Rather, he is certain that they do have their thoughts very, very clear. The if is simply a rhetorical way of forcefully saying, since you have the encouragement in Christ, since you have comfort provided by love, since you have fellowship with the Spirit, and since you have affection and mercy, then he says, complete my joy. It is a matter of certainty, tried and tested, that Christ encourages us, love that consoles us, the Spirit that shows us sympathy and consolation. Now, this is not up for discussion, therefore, or debate. If does not mean that we are here to debate it. Now, if that be so, if the Philippian Christians have received the things that he mentions, then they have now a responsibility to do what he is about to describe. So, the demand of Paul may be summed up in one word, and that word is unity. You see, the Christian is called, he says, to be of the same mind, having the same love, then he'll say being in full accord, and finally he says of one mind again, that theme of unity. Paul is not talking about uniformity. Uniformity comes literally from uniform, or what you look like on the outside. No, that's not what he's saying. He's talking about unity, and unity, he says, comes from your character, from inside, from the internals, from the Word and from the Spirit. Now, it was very, very clear, and I did this on Saturday, that all was not well in Philippi. There were tensions in the church in Philippi, but the Gospels, if you look at them, are strewn with tense relationships. There were moments of tension that took place with Jesus' disciples. Look at Mark chapter 9 verse 33 to 34. Look at Luke chapter 9 verse 46 and then chapter 22 of Luke verse 24. Or for that matter, look at Galatians, which we just did, chapter 2 verse 11 to 14. Paul and Peter had a disagreement about the law, and Paul says, well, I told Peter off to his face. So it's not that we don't see disagreements. The disunity in the church of Philippi stemmed from the fact that there was an enthusiasm to spread the gospel. Now this sounds so strange. Why would there be disunity? Because they wanted to share the gospel. But oftentimes that's been our experience. There is disunity in the church. All want to preach the gospel, but there's disunity in the parish council. You know, even a good cause or a godly cause can become the source of disunity if we forget the reason for the cause. Now, even though the Philippians were earnest in their belief, they got so carried away that at times they began to clash with each other. And here's a word of caution for all of us, for those of us who serve Christ's church. It is a scandal very often, as St. Paul will tell us even more in verses 3 and 4. It's a scandal when we all claim to be promoting the gospel but fighting with each other in the parish. And this is a shame very often. It flies against the unity that Christ calls us to. In fact, St. Paul will tell us in verses 5 onwards to put on the mind, have this mind among yourselves, he will say, have this mind among yourselves, the mind of Jesus, who even though was eternally God's Son, humbled himself to become like one of us in all things but sin. He humbled himself. That call to humility. Paul, in verses 3 and 4, will now give us the antidote to disunity. What do I need to take, or what do I need to be careful in order to kill disunity? Now, Paul will tell us that division begins with the heart. And we've all experienced this, a little jealousy, a little hatred, a little anger. Why did they get this role? Why wasn't I called? Why didn't they call me first? It begins the heart. It starts with little things and it starts in little ways. Now, Paul says that the first aid to unity, the first way to bring unity is to renounce any self-ambition. Much of what we do is not done out of love for others, but out of our own desire for advancement or for our promotion. And this is a reality we have to face. The second step, says Paul, to unity is, he says, can you deal with conceit? Now, conceit is thinking too highly of oneself, of having a very excessive self-interest and self-preoccupation. It could be more literally translated as empty glory. And conceit is dangerous. Yeah? Many people think, oh, this program cannot happen in the parish unless I organize it. Yeah? It will never succeed. I'm so sure. Yeah? Careful, because you bring disunity by conceit. The third step, says Paul, to the kind of unity that he describes in chapter 2, verse 2, which we just did, is completely contradictory to the attitude of the world, because the third step to unity calls us to be lowly of mind. Striving to regard others as better than yourself is about the least attractive thing to the thinking of this world. Yet, there is truth in this. For if you consider you above me and you consider me above you, then a marvelous thing happens. We have a community where everyone is looked up to and no one is looked down on. And finally, the fourth step to unity is that we look not for our own interests, says Paul, but let us look for the interests of others. You see, Paul doesn't tell us that it is wrong to look out for our interests, but that we should not only look out for our own interests. That's what he's trying to say. Nothing is more diametrically opposed to unity and being one in spirit and purpose than selfishness and constantly seeking one's own interests. Now, the two attitudes, unity and selfishness, remember, cannot coexist. One has to give way to the other. I want to end with this. The quickest road to joy is humility. Can I say that again? The quickest road to joy is humility. The quickest road to unhappiness is pride. So, enter into that humility of Jesus. In case right now you're getting involved in your parish and getting involved in something and you find yourself struggling, just read St. Paul's letter to the Philippians chapter 2 verses 3 and 4, where you have a checklist of 4 things that says, if there is disunity, check and see whether one of these things is really ailing you. Today, several people celebrate their birthdays and their wedding anniversaries. I want to wish my dear friends Neeru and Vilma, now settled in the UK, a very happy anniversary. To Leslie and Sneha for my former parish of St. Jude, also a very happy anniversary. I know at the time of recording this, they are somewhere holidaying in Turkey, but Leslie and Sneha have been absolutely wonderful, both at St. Jude's and here. I want to wish Father Saju, who was also a dear companion, one of my juniors as a seminarian when I was a priest, a very happy birthday. Happy birthday, Saju. And surprise, surprise, today is Lenny Suarez's birthday. So all of you who have been funding the Lovejoy Hope Foundation for Children run by Lenny and his wife, I want to say thank you and pray for Lenny for the work that he and Nadia do for these children. God bless you all. Happy birthday, Lenny, once again. Have a lovely, lovely day. And I hope you get many, many calls today. Hope you have the time to take all of them. For the rest of you who are watching, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, leave your comments, subscribe to our channel. And I'll see you again tomorrow, because tomorrow is the feast, the solemnity of All Saints. And I want to ask you to please make time, both tomorrow and day after, to go to Mass. God bless you.